Hello YouTubers, I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. Okay, now I want to bring up a practical issue. And I remember I had done this in the past, and somebody had complained that, oh well, now he's telling us what to do. So let's have a disclaimer right now. Okay, I am passing on what worked for me. It may not work for you. I'm just passing on my experience. So with that out of the way, I want to talk to you about something that, had I done properly, would have saved me hours and hours of wasted time. Okay, now, in particular, what I'm talking about is AC adapters and power supplies, basically. Kind of like this, okay? You know, they're all made for a specific unit, so plug that into the wall. They're called wall warts, if you like. And then this plugs into the unit that's designed for. And that's fine, right? So when you buy something like a pedal that uses a specific AC adapter, it'll come with it, and you think, well, no big deal. Here's the problem. Over the years, these AC adapters seem to pile up, right, until you've got a huge box of them. And when you try to find the right power adapter, it's probably been separated from the unit it was designed for. And you've got to sift through a box of AC adapters, right? And what's even worse than that, to find the right one, you've got to read the output and see if it matches. And then you have to find out, for the unit you're trying to power, what are the power requirements for that unit. Pain in the butt. And I've wasted many hours sifting through boxes of power supplies and the like. Now, as a guitarist for several years, you know, over time you accumulate a lot of pedals and, you know, whatever, drum machines, all kinds of stuff. And some manufacturers include an AC adapter, otherwise known as a wall wart. You know, it plugs into the wall and then plugs into the unit. And over time, well, you end up with quite a collection of these. And unfortunately, the writing on the power supplies is very small most of the time. And when you have a box of them to sift through to find the right one that you're looking for to power a certain unit, right? Well, that takes an awful lot of time, you know. And you have to also know what power requirements the unit you have that you're trying to power needs, right? Okay. And believe me, I have spent hours and hours doing this. You know, I find an FX pedal that I didn't even know I had anymore. However, it was separated from the power supply, so I had no real way of powering it. Right? So I had to go through and sift through the power supplies, try to match it up with the one it had, finding out what the power requirements of the unit are, and then trying to find a power supply that'll work with it. Pain in the butt. And has wasted many hours for me. Boy, I sure like to try that pedal, but if only I could find a way to power it. I've got to have the right power adapter in here somewhere. Is this it? Oh. Is this it? Is this it? So I found a solution, and I'll share it with you. And it seems so logical and so simple. Yet, I've been burned by this so many times, you know, that I finally put my foot down and said, look, I'm going to do this correctly. So here it is, and it's so simple. And that is, it looks like we've got some sign of wildlife here. Let's take a look. Sure enough, there he is. Oops. Look at that. What is that? Kind of rabbit or something. Oh no, it's a little duckling, of course. Little duckling. Hopping around and stuff. That'd make a good dinner, wouldn't it? No, that's terrible. A brilliant idea. How about labeling your power supplies? Right? Like this one says Canon video camera. Right? So I know that it's for the Canon video camera. So even if it's in a box with other power supplies and so on, say, oh, okay, this powers a Canon video camera. Makes perfect sense, right? Pretty simple. Take a look at this AC adapter right here. See that? And you see this white label? In other words, take an address label, right, and write on it what the power adapter is for. And this particular case, it says Canon video camera, right? So there you go. Right away I know, oh, okay, so that's for the Canon video camera that I have, right? Now, with that being said, it seems so simple, and yet, you know, you always have to go get an address label, you have to get a pen, you gotta dig around for the pen, you know. And in this scheme of things, when you're working on something, you know, you just don't have that time to waste. So I would really set some time apart and label your AC adapters. And what I would do is just write, what is it for? What does it power? Right? In this case, the Canon video camera. Right? Therefore, even if it gets separated from the video camera, you know, in a separate box for whatever reason, and I run across it again, I can say, oh yes, I know exactly what that is and what it's for. Now I know what you're thinking, right? Oh, well, that seems so simple and so easy, you know. Well, I'll just go to the dollar store and buy some address labels, right? I tried that too. And let's put it this way, they don't last very long. They last like an hour and then they fall off. You think, oh, well, you know, I mean, I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on it or anything. So I'll go to the dollar store and buy some address labels. Unfortunately, phooey on that. Because this is exactly what I tried. And guess what? The darn labels, you know, after an hour or so, they'd come off. Right? Complete waste of time. Useless. So I decided to step up to the heavy duty grade. And instead of the dollar store, I went to the grocery store. And here's what I bought. Avery 6113 multi-purpose labels. Or I'm sorry, multi-use labels. Right? And there's 128 of them in a packet. Right? And these are great because these actually stay on. You know? Now how long, I don't know, but they seem pretty good so far. Right? So I highly recommend these if you wanted to try them. So basically, I mean, you know, I've made a collection of these darn power supplies for different pedals, drum machines, so on and so on. And for whatever reason, after a year or two, you know, they usually get separated from the unit itself and they can't find what's what. Anyway, all I can tell you is that this has saved me hours and hours of time. Right? Because now, when I run across one of these power supplies, you know, I know immediately what it goes to, what it's for. And what a huge difference it's made. Because in particular, as a guitar player, a lot of time a pedal, for example, the Eventide H9, comes with an AC adapter, okay? However, I usually put that pedal on my pedal board. And there I've got, you know, a Voodoo Labs digital power supply underneath the board that powers it, so I don't need the power supply. Now that doesn't mean I want to throw it away, the power supply, but usually it'll end up in a box of power supplies and I don't know what's what, right? Whereas if I have it labeled like this, right, I can finally find it. Now there's one other thing that I use with this, and that is a lot of times I have extra power supplies for things that I use, you know, to power something that I no longer have or what have you. They're just power supplies, you know. Or if I'm in need of a power supply, I have some spares, you know, that can go to all kinds of different units. And on those, because the writing is so very small on these AC adapters, and you have to look very closely and see what it is and that kind of thing, and see if it's what you're looking for. Well, if you label them with at least the voltage and the amps, for in other words, let's say for example 9 volt 300 milliamp, okay, a typical, you know, guitar pedal power supply. Well, if you have it labeled as 9 volt 300 milliamp, you don't have to look very far, even in a box of these, right, for the right one that you want to use. The other thing is, by writing the voltage on it, I know that it doesn't belong to an existing piece of equipment that I have, and I can just use it as I need to, you know. Whereas things that belong specifically to a piece of electronic equipment, for example, this Canon video camera, instead of the voltage, I just write with the item that it's for. Canon video camera. Right? That way I don't even have to think about it. I know exactly what piece of equipment it goes to. Now, obviously, if you've only got, you know, 1 or 2 pedals with the AC adapters, you know, maybe you don't need to do this kind of thing. But I'm just sharing what worked for me anyway, my experience. And this has been a lifesaver, let me tell you. Now, eventually, after a couple years, you know, I mean, these kind of get worn out. You know, you might spend a couple minutes, you know, relabeling it, if need be. But I very much like these Avery labels compared to the dollar store ones that, you know, they would come off after about an hour, you know. Where these are much more heavy duty. Okay, so this seems so simple, yet believe me, it has saved me hours and hours of aggravation, you know, because I have boxes of these things, and it's very hard to tell, you know, where it came from and what it's for, you know, or this is, right here there's no question, you know. Very handy this way. The other thing is this protects equipment, especially if you use a power supply it came with, rather than trying to match one up, you know. And if you try to match one up and make a mistake, you know, you could blow up the pedal or whatever, and it won't work anymore. So you want to avoid that if you can. Right. So anyway, this has worked very well for me, and I highly recommend it. You know, so who knows, maybe this might help some people out there. Alright, anyway, this is what worked for me. Alright, very good. See you next time. Okay, bye. What is that? Kind of rabbit or something? Oh no, it's a little duckling, of course. Little duckling. Hopping around and stuff. That'd make a good dinner, wouldn't it? No, that's terrible. Okay.